Now here is an amp video I didn't think I would be making, but here we are. This is a great amp setup with and without pedals for playing in your living room, for recording and for gigging. But there is a little footnote which I will reveal later. Lately I have been looking for a small tube amp that was easy to carry around and that would allow me to play guitar in my living room instead of always having to sit here with my big amps in the basement studio. Besides that, I wanted it to be a fun recording amp with its own character. During that search I had a show with my band Nighthawker where we had very little room and a very short changeover time. I have discussed small rigs for gigs like this before on my channel, but for me this consisted of a Marshall Studio Vintage head with a 1x12 cabinet and the Ironman 2 attenuator. That's not a big rig by any means, but it's still 3 different things in flight cases I have to carry around and set up. In the meantime, our other guitarist, being my wife, simply has a Vox SV20C for these kinds of shows. She just puts that on a tilt stand, plugs it in and turns it on. I needed a better solution. You might not recognize this amp right away because it's a limited edition look, it's a different Solex, but it's the combo version of the Marshall Studio Vintage. And I actually never considered one of these because I thought they would still be too loud and in need of attenuation, and I had my doubts about that 10-inch speaker. But shortly before and after I played that gig, I started giving these amps some more thought. Especially while trying other types of tube amps and finding out I don't like a lot anymore that's not Marshall Plexi-esque. And then I found out that a lot of people actually really love this little combo. The main concern would be volume, because I knew this amp was still going to be very loud. A Plexi actually has 2 volume controls with the patch channels, but I actually use that as most of my EQ and gain setting. And having to carry another attenuator around for an amp like this would still be a hassle, but I found another solution to this. Now let's check the low volumes at which you can actually use this combo in your living room. So I'm only using the room microphone so you can hear how the amp sounds in the room and compared to my voice. So you heard me talk, and when I start playing, the volume and the sound is like this. So to me it doesn't sound a lot louder than a television, so I think this would be doable in an apartment or in your living room. But let's see how it sounds if we switch to the microphones that are actually in front of the combo. read that a lot of people who own this amp use something in the effects loop to tame the volume when needed. Mostly something like a GHS little black amp box. So I started experimenting with pedals in my own studio vintage head. And it was a bit of a surprise which pedal actually worked. The best option I had lying around the house was actually a cheap Timmy clone, the Pure Sky by K-Line. It's a pretty aggressive overdrive, but the controls work really well with this amp. I can dial back the volume and push the gain a bit more to make up for the drive I lose for not pushing the amp as much, and the EQ controls work well to dial back in whatever I seem to lose. Now, does this sound as good as the amp on full blast or when I use my Tone King Ironman 2 attenuator? Of course not, but I think it still sounds very good on low TV volumes, and it's a lot more practical than having to carry an additional attenuator around to get a lower volume. So that's why I stuck this pedal to the backplate of the amp, ready to roll. For me, this is a great solution and I can recommend this to anyone who's looking for a similar thing. You will need one more power outlet to power the pedal in the back, but you can easily carry this amp around to anywhere you need. Just get the amp, get this cheap pedal, get a power supply, some Velcro and one tie wrap and you're done. Don't forget, this amp also has a 5 watt setting. For recording you don't need to shave off too much volume, so the amp almost sounds the same as without this method, and for live shows even less so. And there's a button in the back to turn off the effects loop, so you can take all of this entirely out of the chain. I'm pretty happy I managed to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, and I'm actually surprised I didn't think of this any earlier. Let me know if you have an all-around rig like this in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next time.